Good morning, SL 320. This is Zach Sy, and I am doing my third credit book presentation on Leading at the Edge, which is a book written by Dennis Perkins, who investigated the journey of Ernest Shackleton's The Endurance in their journey to the Antarctic Circle. And during Shackleton's journey, the ship experienced extreme conditions to which they actually lost the ship, and Shackleton, the captain, had to find a way to bring his entire crew back into safety. And so, seeing as this book is about performing under life or death situations, I decided that it would be best to bring our presentation out into the wild where my life was literally in danger. And I'm going to talk about these 10 specific strategies that Perkins came up with. He was a ex-naval officer who studied Shackleton's journey, and he discovered 10 strategies that he feels you can apply towards business structures that seem to be failing or seem to be in dire situations. And the first strategy that he lists is he calls it vision and quick victories. And what happens when you are in extreme conditions is sometimes your goals and your visions have to change. If you're in a business that's failing, that means that you have to come up with different strategies or different structures that can help move your people in a different direction. Because obviously what was working before is not working now, and so you have to come up with new things. He also tells his readers to take note of small victories that you should participate in to help get momentum going. I don't want to say necessarily in the change process, because his book is not really geared towards change, although kind of underneath it is, because you have a business that's floundering, and he's trying to save it, or you do have to change it. So I guess it is about change. But he tells you to come up with short victories so that way you can build some momentum moving forward. I'd also like to point out that this book is not written from a Christian perspective. I mean, Perkins, he might be a Christian, but he's not writing from a Christian perspective. He's telling this to business leaders on how to change their structures. So the first one, or the first strategy, is to develop a vision and come up with quick victories. Strategy number 2 is symbolism and personal example. And what the author observed with Shackleton, the captain, was that he led by personal example. And this is extremely important for business leaders to take hold of, that they have to lead their companies by the examples that they set. So, for example, what Shackleton did was convince his crew that in their journey back to safety, they have to only take what's necessary. And so he actually showed his crew, showed his men, how he was ridding himself of other valuables that were unnecessary, and that kind of inspired the rest of the crew to move forward. And so Perkins is taking that observation, and he's saying, as a business leader, in your models, in your new structures, you take up a personal example, or you hold up the mantle so that others can follow. Also, using symbolism, using gestures or models, or just other examples that you can pull out with that can illustrate what you're trying to achieve. Strategy number 3 is optimism and reality. What Perkins is saying is to instill optimism in yourself and also instill it in your crew or in your team, but on the basis of reality. So you don't want to be overly optimistic, because that could honestly become annoying. Instead, you want to be someone who never wavers, who never feels like all is lost, hope is gone. He's saying, be that strong model, be that strong example, and other people are going to witness that and follow after you. The next strategy, number 4, is called stamina. And Perkins observes that it's important to take care of yourself and your crew in order to maintain stamina, and also to let go of guilt. So as a leader, you want to find outlets in order to you want to find outlets in order to relieve some stress, but also you want to find outlets for your team, and that could be in the shape of business breaks um, or other areas that you see specifically that people can can just be relieved of their stress. But also uh, he points out to let go of guilt, because as leaders we're bound to make mistakes, or you're going to make mistakes, and he says you've got to let go of that guilt. And for the Christian, a lot of that kind of makes sense, because we know that we're forgiven of our sins. So for me, I'm thinking in a church setting, you you want to hold tightly to verses like 1 John 1:9, and know that you're forgiven, because if you're weighed down by your guilt, that's going to rule how you lead, and people are going to be able to see that, and we got to let go of that because God's forgiven us. Strategy number 5 is building the team message. He's saying to reinforce the team message constantly, and for Shackleton, that message was, "We are one, we live and die together." And so you want to create a solid team and send a strong message of unity. You can do that through value statements. You could do that through constant communication. Perkins says that in business models, you want to be constantly communicating with your team and with the people in your organization, so that way you can really develop unity. People tend to get scattered when they don't know what's going on. So build a team message and build team unity through communication and value statements and things like that. Strategy number 6 is have core team values. And what he means by that is make sure everyone on the team feels valued. For instance, minimize status differences. In business models, there's a lot of different hierarchies, and so people who are at the top tend to make people at the bottom feel low or feel insignificant, and the people at the bottom, they can already sense that, and he's saying that's not good for teamwork, for corporate cohesion. Also, develop mutual respect. And one of the best ways that that I felt that Perkins pointed out to do this was by the leaders having a genuine interest and care for those underneath them. Uh, this is what Shackleton did with the Endurance and his crew members, and they really gathered around him because they said, "Oh man, this is a leader who really cares." And in business models, if you can be someone who genuinely has compassion for others working with you, then they're going to sense that, and they're going to be motivated to work with what you are telling them to do, because they feel valued, they feel respected. So avoid that hierarchy. Strategy number 7 is mastering conflict. And conflict management is a big deal. And the best way to deal with that, according to Perkins and Shackleton, is to address conflicts as they arise. If you ignore a disagreement, or if you ignore a disgruntlement, that can snowball. It can have an effect where it just builds up, and people will start talking amongst themselves and developing other opinions, and they're not going to be willing to follow you. They're not going to be willing to work together. And if you can notice some of those disagreements early on, then you're not going to have an issue with that in the future. And one of the things that Shackleton did was every single disagreement that happened on the ship, he had those disagreement. He had an ear for them. He didn't address all of them specifically, but the ones that involved actions that he viewed as unacceptable, he addressed them. I think he addressed them publicly, but he addressed them directly and at the moment that it happened. So that way it doesn't build up. And in business organizations or churches, you definitely want to do that, because you want to work as a team, and that's just not Christ-like, to have differing attitudes and opinions and disgruntlements. We all want to be friends and love our neighbors together. Strategy number 8 is probably my favorite strategy, and it's lighten up. And really what the author is saying is find something to celebrate and something to laugh about. I really think about Proverbs 17:22, where it says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine." When you're enduring change, or when you have a business that's floundering, you already are you're already in a stressful environment, and so people are going to be feeling the pressure of that, and so they need some other way to release that pressure. And one of the best ways you can do that as a leader is by introducing celebrations. Or for Shackleton, they had a leap day. It was a particular leap year, and so on February 29th, he had a little party, and he like served hot chocolate to the rest of his crew members, and they really felt they really enjoyed that, and were motivated to press on. And so in the office space, or more specifically in the church space, you want to be enjoying the work. People will want to continue pursuing the goal or the vision that the leader has in mind if they're enjoying working there, if they're enjoying the process. And so find things to celebrate, make people laugh, be joyful yourself, and that can really take you a long way. All right, so sorry about the last feed. Looks like we got cut off a little bit, but back to strategy number 9, which is take risks. And what the author is trying to communicate is make changes that will seem like risky to other people, but the only reason it's really risky is because it's a change. And some of the examples that he gave were, there was a company that realized it was losing a ton of money in one of its production areas, and I think it was like bricks and mortars, and they decided to cut off that whole side of their company and focus entirely on the internet, and they found success. And so the author is saying take risks in that sense, that you have to make changes, maybe structural changes, maybe cut some things out, put some things in that are risky to others but are necessary in order to succeed. And lastly, strategy number 10 is have tenacious creativity. And the author is really saying what you should be doing is allow others to use their creative minds. Have others play a role in asking them, what types of solutions would you come up with? What types of things would you do differently? And when other people feel like they have a role in the change that's made, creativity flows, and change is made a lot more possible and a lot more enjoyable for the working team, and therefore you can find success. So ultimately, those are the 10 strategies that the author places in this book. They are not all needed to be used in sequence. You can use any one of them. That's why he calls them strategies and not steps. But for me personally, at first when I was reading this book, to be honest, I wasn't really a fan, because he kept putting life or death situations as his examples. And I started to think to myself, well, that doesn't really apply to me, because I'm not like stranded in the middle of nowhere. But as I kind of paused and I thought about it some more and kept reading in this book, I realized, you know what? Wait a minute. In the ministry, we really are dealing with life and death situations. We're dealing with life and death eternally. And so how much more do we really need to take steps or strategies like this seriously in our churches? It really started to hit home for me, because I was just thinking, yeah, we are dealing with life and death, and so I want to try and implement these as best as I can. So that's what I got. That's what this book is about, and I hope you enjoyed it, and see you later.